Halloween forever.
So guys, why is it so hard to starve to death in the desert?
I don't know, Brian. Why?
Because of all the sandwiches there. Welcome, boys and ghouls, to a fucking full-on Minisode of Outwaters Forever. I'm Brian.
I'm Meg.
Steve.
Really
suspicious.
puttered that one out. Really puttered that one out.
That was just I felt the struggle on that one.
Oofda. And that was
I'm just
not
wondering,
are
you okay? Like,
I am tired, guys. I am fucking beat. It's Sunday afternoon. I'm going to buy. It's the sun's not even down. I'm ready to fucking go to sleep here. I need some beers in me. I need a little toot of something. Get me woked up over here. How about a little toot of a little cosmic horror, you guys? Newly released, kinda. You guys, we're gonna talk about a little flicky that just came out onto streamings this past week called The Outwaters from 20 and 22. But before we do that, we got a couple other dang old things we got to do. First of all, maybe we talk about beers because I need a little bit of this beer in me. I need something to wake me up here. I'm fucking half asleep. What do you got?
I didn't have a lot of options, so I was like kind of going into the fridge into the back, and I like had been sitting on. I didn't want to drink this alone, guys, but I was like, I have the Chimay Green. I don't know if it's newer or not. Someone can correct that, but I hadn't had it in like all the years that I've drank Chimay. It's nice. It's a strong blonde ale. Pretty straightforward. I mean, classic Chimay. It's nice. It's not necessarily like easy drinking. Your girl's going to get boy. We're going to get a little drunk in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I have a couple of those. And yeah, I don't know the history of that beer. I do know that, obviously the quad, the Chimay Blue, was the kind of the strongest. And I saw that one popping up relatively recently. And maybe it's something they brought back. I don't know. But yeah, it's a big old monster. Like Belgian Golden Strong, but at like, isn't it like 11.5%, 12%, something like that?
Man, it's only 10.
Oh, really? It's only 10?
Yeah, it's 10.
I thought it was bigger than that, but yeah, it does. I like that beer a lot.
It's really floral, know?
Like, it's got a lot of this like higher alcohol esters. Like, I love that type of beer, but it's just a guaranteed headache for me.
Yeah. My cheeks, I mean, you can't tell because of the, my Twitch lighting, but my cheeks will probably get red within 5-10 minutes. And that's what happens. And then why I usually don't even drink higher gravity beers is they go right to my head. I get really flush. I just like feel almost weighed down almost immediately. I'm like, I don't want to, this is not the experience I want. But I mean, it's a nice beer. I just probably only be sipping on her.
Yeah, I think I have some of that sensitivity to like higher molecular weight alcohols, like those, or you could just smell those higher alcohol esters, and they're like, I don't know if it's like isoamyl alcohol or one of these like higher, even more toxic than the ethanol esters that come out of these like really vigorous, high gravity. Belgian ale fermentations from like a bunch of simple sugars. They just fucking go right to my dome to give me a headache. But they're delicious beers. So I don't know.
I don't know what your ladies are talking about.
Steve's like, give me that zoom. Steve's like, actually, if you could just give me straight like poison, I'll just drink that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
What are you drinking over there? Speaking of some sort of goddamn poison.
Well, I tossed the coin earlier, and it was going to be
put gasoline in soju.
Well, yeah, it almost was soju.
Yeah,
it was between soju and what I actually am drinking. Is I found a classic. Ooh. And we talked about this classic probably episodes and episodes ago, but I found the banana bread beer from way back Swens.
Oh, Wells banana bread beer. Yeah, that's always been a yummy one.
But it's not Wells anymore. They've changed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's now Eagle Brewery. Yeah.
So is somebody contract brewing that for them, or
I have no idea.
Interesting.
But if you look on tap profile, it says formerly Charles Wells, so it still is Wells Banana Bread, but now it's Eagle Brewery Banana Bread.
Wonder if they rebranded, or they were doing some sort of contract brewing or something. Yeah, I don't know.
The name doesn't really flow as well, in my opinion.
No,
Nah.
You just got to go Banana Bread. You don't say Eagle. I wouldn't talk about that.
Eagle Brewing, and I just think of like a VFW type.
I think I like Yingling or something like that. It's like and then it's at odds with something as comforting as banana bread. That's weird too, because if they just kind of did a rebrand, craft beer drinkers who have some like nostalgia around that beer probably equate it obviously with Wells and like Bombardier and some of their other beers, but I don't know. I don't know the nature of the circumstance there, but that's been a long time since I had that beer.
Yeah. I mean, they completely changed like all the like colors and everything on the can too, because now it's like this pop art halftone thing.
Now it's completely translucent. You can see right through it.
There it goes.
Steve's
camera's always an ass.
Every single time he holds up a can, it just looks like he's just holding his hand up. Like you can see right through
That's
it.
the weirdest thing. Why doesn't it understand? I want to show what's in my hand.
Yeah,
dumbass
your
camera.
hand's never clear, but whatever you're holding always is clear. I've seen those cans around. It's like a bronzy type of can, isn't it?
No, it's like a bright yellow, and like it's a bright yellow pop art with a halftone color on it. Whereas like the old styles were like the old brown and bronze. Yeah, kind of like looked Englishy.
Yeah,
but then also was banana bread
Samuel
beer.
Smith-esque.
Yeah,
interesting.
Samuel Smith for children is what it looked like.
Interesting. Yeah,
I'm the kids.
We got a whole weird selection of beers here because I'm drinking something that's certainly not a regular type of beer from what I usually drink. This was given to me by a gentleman I met in beautiful Montgomery County, Maryland. Owns a nice little bottle shop there, and he gave me a couple of beers to try out from Other Half Brewing, and he gave me actually a few different ones, but this one is the Other Half Double Strata Daydream. It's a single hop, double IPA, 8.5% Strata, double dry hopped with Strata, and an oat cream India Pale Ale. So big old hazy son of a bitch with lactose. Yeah.
Is that a gold can that they put it in too?
No.
Gold color? Oh, okay. Just lighting.
No, I think it's just, reflecting off my...
I feel like I have like a mild like shit talking thing about the marketing of these type of beers too. It's like, do we now have to talk about like why I feel like using the word like oat cream or, what I'm like, we all know you were using oats before. Now you're just talking about it, you silly goose.
Yeah, it's just a different way of saying oats and lactose. Just a different way of saying oats and lactose. But now they're calling it Imperial Oat Cream IPA.
Yeah.
What's the thing that bugs me a little bit about these beers are more just like the absolute fucking audacity of the marketing, in that they just change one thing about the beer. Maybe it's a different hop variety. Maybe it's this one has lactose versus the other one doesn't have lactose. And then they just have these like incredibly, totally pleasant and fine labels, but incredibly ambiguous. And like, it's just a rinse and repeat type of thing where every single beer is like just, what's the other one from up in like Williamsport that makes all the IPAs up there?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of it. There's one that just like none of their fucking labels tell you shit all about what's actually in the beer.
I feel like Aslan does it a lot.
Not Aslan. The Aslan, they're on and off with what they do. There's one that is like a terrible perpetrator, and I think they were the first one because the brand was actually started by somebody who was a DJ first. Oh God, this is gonna kill me.
New Trail's who I was thinking of.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, New Trail's just is like, here's the boot, here's the thing.
Yeah, New Trails. It's just like I said, just rinse and repeat, and they'll release a new IPA every damn week, and it's just like one small thing changed about it, and then the logo is just like that could. There's anything particularly distinct about it, but you know what? They're cranking them so quick. It's not like you're gonna completely redesign something every week, but it's just interesting. They all kind of blend together in that way for me, and so I don't know. I never bring them up like. Double Strata Daydream and this logo. I mean, I feel like I've seen and heard of or perused by 700 beers exactly like this in my life and never, I just wouldn't give it another thought. Like it's a perfectly tasty beer. Actually, the other one I had from them that didn't have lactose in it, I preferred better. This one's okay. But I just would have absolutely walked right by on the shelf. That said, just straight up hazy IPA is not necessarily my cup of tea, but this is totally drinkable. Does
it have a good pineapple flavor at least?
It does. Yeah, I mean it does.
That's just one of the things for the most part, hops are pretty indistinguishable for a lot of the time. But the one thing I noticed about the Strata is it has a good pineapple flavor. Yeah,
it's more berry-ish, I would say. It's almost got that berry candy type of thing. It definitely has tinned pineapple, very juicy fruit gum almost kind of thing with the lactose as well. Yeah, it's fresh, it's bright. I don't know that the lactose needs to be there, frankly, but that's just a matter of personal taste. I don't know. There's certainly nothing wrong with it. I've only had 2 beers from them. Both of them seem to be quality beers. They don't have a bunch of fucking chunkies or anything like that in them. It's pretty good. Can't complain. All right, guys, we got the beers out of the way. We got a couple more things we got to do here before we get into the movie. If you look at that dang old calendar, you might notice that we only got but one episode before the first episode in March, which means we're going to tell you about what our topic is, or more to the point, you guys have told us what our topic for our Showdown episode in March is going to be. As a reminder, if you want to help us pick those topics and give us some suggestions and, just vote on them, that sort of thing, or just see some spooky ooky shit on the old intranets, go on over to the social medias and follow us. It's at Halloween is Forever on, all those platforms, wherever you get your social medias. Also, typically Instagram and Twitter are where we actually vote. So each month, for those of you who are new to the show, perhaps, what we do is we have a big old spinning wheel of a bunch of topics. We pull 3 of them out every month, put them on that wheel, or we pull 3 of them off the wheel, put them on the social medias rather, and then Yins will pick them and argue, fight, ultimately probably just have an uneventful thumb movement over one of them. And once we've decided what it is, we'll each pick a film associated with that topic for our Showdown. So as a reminder, last time we had werewolf flicks, we had best of Peter Cushing, and we had Hungry for Horror. And perhaps no surprise, also because we all, I think, subtly wanted this one and may have influenced the voting just a little bit. Who knows? Listen, don't point fingers. Hungry for Horror won it for the month of March. So that first Monday in March, the topic will be Hunky for Horror, which essentially is anything that has to do, horror flicks have to do with food or restaurants or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I already know what I'm going to pick.
I have a good feeling I know what I'm going to pick too. So, but
I don't, guys.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's all right. You got a week. You got a week to think about it.
If anyone messages you and with suggestions, send them to me.
Yeah, I'll get right on that. All right, so let's get. If you want to message the suggestions to Meg, send them to TikTok, and they will just melt into the void, never to be heard from or seen ever again. No,
man,
or
going right for the jugular here.
Yeah, or just Well, you know what? Like I said, if you say make sure you preface the DM in the Instagrams as "for Meg's eyes only" in big capital letters, and then I'll forward it directly over to her. No,
don't listen to him. He's going to delete it immediately. I value your input.
Stealing people's mail. I am going to my pick's already locked as far as I know, unless somebody snakes it, which I don't. Not very.
I don't know. I'm kind of fingers crossed. I just kind of hope I do. You know.
I've not heard you talk about this movie. I'd be surprised. I will have a backup, but I would be surprised if you staked this one. But we got a whole week. We got a whole week to mill it around in the old noggin there. Next week's Minisode, we will announce what our Showdown Hunky for Horror flick picks are going to be for March, guys. That said, let's jump into this movie we're talking about today. Once again, we decided to watch and discuss the newly released on streaming in a weirdly convoluted way. I hate all these different new streaming services now. They all want to do like exclusives and limited, things associated with them and stuff like that. So they'll say things like exclusively released on streaming service X or Y, and then the day of when it comes out, it's on a bunch of other streaming services as well. But the film is Outwaters from 20 and 22. It was showing up everywhere as free on not free. It's going to debut on Screambox. Is that that's the service, right? But I think that's like just an Amazon channel, from what I can understand. That's like an Amazon Prime channel. Is that accurate? Never heard of it before this.
I was telling Steve that's how I got to it, but Steve seemed to have a different experience than I did, and I got suckered back into joining Amazon. I'll blame the alcohol. That's what I'm going to do.
Meg is saying she was drunk and wound up resubscribing to Prime and then Screambox. So
I'm back on both.
Yeah. So you're right, Brian. It is incredibly convoluted. I think they wanted to promote Screambox because Screambox was the platform that Terrifier 2 came out on. And they're trying to push it and not trying to push these other places, but you can get it on Roku, you can get it on Apple. Yeah. And then the fun one I found, I was just upset because it would have been free, is there's a service called Hoopla.
Hoopla. Okay.
And Hoopla is tied to your library card. So if you have a library card, you can rent out shit for free on the internet.
Really?
Yeah.
Like any library.
Oh, no, I mean, it acts as like a digital library.
Oh.
So it's cool. Yeah, so it's like any library card, I guess, would work with it. And
that's weird.
Now we know what the hoopla is all about, you know?
Oh God!
Hey now, it's that's interesting. I can't stop thinking about how strange that is. A library. First of all, I haven't been. Well, I guess I take my kids to the library occasionally, but I'm just I'm struggling to think how does the Elwood City Library have anything to do with this? It's just not making sense in my brain. Mm-hmm. I went similar route that Meg went. I went on Amazon Prime and it was on there, and you could rent it for $6.99 or something like that, or it was included with a free trial of Screambox, 7-day free trial. So I signed up for that, and then I'm going to forget to cancel it and just then pay $4.99. Listen, I'd rather pay $4.99 a month into perpetuity than remember where my library card is. I guess I don't know.
I am annoyed enough. I will cancel this $4.99 charge.
Yeah. I probably, well, I don't know. I'll screw around on Screambox, see if there's anything on there. I mean, $4.99 a month, you watch a couple movies a month. It's it pretty much pays for itself. Anyway, I'm not here to promote your Screamboxes and your libraries. We are going to talk about this Outwaters movie. Didn't know much about it going into it. Really didn't know anything about it except for, Steve, what you mentioned as we were deciding what we're going to do for this episode. Steve was like, hey, I heard some good things about this. Maybe we check it out. I was like, hey, what is it? He's like, oh, it kind of reminds you said, I think you compared it to that one section in VHS 94 where like they're out in the desert. It's supposed to be like they're in hell kind of thing, which is not too terribly far off, although not as fun as that segment.
No, I said it was a more serious version of that.
You were right. Yes,
but
you did say that, and that is accurate.
But yeah, then also still not as fun. It's just not as fun.
It's not as fun. It's not as fun. Look, we won't spoil our thoughts about this movie necessarily. Let's kind of highlight it here first of all and tell you what you're getting yourself into. There's actually a very, very concise IMDb synopsis of this, which I'll throw out there because it sounds incredibly vague, but it's also it's kind of perfect because this is an incredibly vague movie. But 4 travelers encounter a menacing phenomena while camping in a remote stretch of the Mojave Desert. That's it. It's just fucking douchebags out in the desert and wild shit starts happening. The director, this is actually kind of similar to The Love Witch in that it feels like it is a singular vision of one person, but it's also a super low budget movie as well. Like this would have fit right in with the old micro budget gems that we did earlier this month. Gentleman's name is one Mr. Robbie Banfitch. He's like director, writer. He stars in the movie. He, I think, composed some of the music. He edited it. Yeah. Cinematography, did practical effects. Like it was literally just like one person and a handful of actors. So and I think I read that the whole thing was like $15,000, like really ultra low budget movie.
It was kind of like some of the things I read, it was also getting kind of wrangled in with Skinamarink, obviously them coming to streaming services at the same time, but they both had a similar budget. And I think people were kind of like, not necessarily comparing them in plot, but comparing them in like how they're released and like what their vibe is a little bit too.
Well, yeah, not so much in plot, but definitely the way they're filmed is getting a lot of comparisons. I did something I don't usually do. I went on Letterboxd and I read some reviews because I don't know. I felt like I'm maybe, not to spoil too much, I thought I was missing something. So I wanted to see if somebody else had a different take. Yeah. But then I came across my favorite review, which was by Al Kimball, who said, "I done got Skinamarinked again."
You know what? It's like I do wish I would have, because I went in blind. I mean, that's kind of my MO. I like to know nothing, as little about the movie as I can. So literally, I went in I didn't even look at a poster for this movie. All I knew about it was that like 2 sentences Steve said. I went on, watched it. I wish I maybe would have, because if I would have known the whole thing was shot for, $15,000, I think I would have appreciated some elements of it a little bit more. But it is wildly vague. I should say right off the bat, like just to kind of set up what and don't get me wrong, I feel like we're starting off on a negative note. I wasn't in love with the movie, but I think it's certainly worth a watch. And I love when there is a movie that only costs that amount of money, because then it feels like I rent it for $5.99. You're like, I just had a considerable contribution to them making their money back for literally $15K. That's incredibly low budget. This like I said, it's shot in so it takes place, the whole thing takes place with the exception of like a little bit in the first act, where they are in like a series of like apartments and stuff in LA, but it's this kind of it supposedly took place in 2017. It's kind of a found footage. I mean, it started out like it's going to be a mockumentary style a little bit, and it is, where they're almost like a case file, a Lake Mungo type vibe, you know what I mean, where it's like this happened in 2017 and here's the 911 call that resulted, and then here are the memory cards, the SD cards from this camera, and we're going to show them to you in order. And almost like there's going to be some discussion about the disappearances and stuff, but none of that really ever comes to fruition or matters. It's literally just like, it's really pure found footage. It's
such an annoying framing device at this point, though, because when you're trying to present something as real, the way like the Paranormal Activity films did, and like that one feels much more along the line of it trying to be real because it's fucking boring and long and shows you a lot of nonsense. This film does all that framing of like, this is real, this is what really happened. And then like almost immediately, like there's a whole bunch of non-diegetic sound and it's like shot and edited way too professionally.
Yeah. And like things happen from like a POV that make no real sense to in the scope of the story. If you want to see how to do it really well, and it's on Tubi, so you know it's quality, the stamp of quality, go and watch Lake Mungo. I mean, get yourself ready. It's not a feel-good flick by any stretch of the imagination, but 2008 Lake Mungo, I think, does that really, really well, does the mockumentary found footage thing really well in a really creepy way, but also just FYI, super depressing. But again, but a fantastic film in my estimation. I think there's kind of mixed feelings about it, but I like it a lot. They pull that thing off. This is like, it's a framing device that feels like it quickly gets thrown the fuck right out the window. But it's about a group of I'm going to say twats that go out to the desert to shoot.
I think you call them.
I think the word is twat. They go out to the desert to shoot the world's most unoriginal music video. And it's basically, so there's a guy, his name's Robbie. Robbie is Robbie that directed the movie and produced it and did all that sort of thing. But his name is Robbie, different last name, you know? And then it's like supposedly his brother's friend, I think. And then this is all done, to shoot a music video for, a friend of Robbie's, right? So it's almost like he agreed to do this music video, and he brought his brother and his brother's friend out to take a look, help them out, do whatever. Let me get their names right here, and I apologize.
Michelle is the girl they're shooting the music video for. Yeah, and it's like, it was hard to tell, but it's like, was she in a relationship with Robbie, or was he doing this to like get a relationship with her?
I took it. I don't know why I got the vibe that Robbie was gay. So I never really even thought of an emotion or like a romantic thing associated with it. I don't think ever said that. For whatever reason, I got the notion Robbie was gay. So I never drew I thought they were just friends. And then also I think it was partially the relationship with the other. So it's his two male, two females. It's Robbie and his brother. And then Michelle, who's the like wannabe artist. She's so, like, I think her whole shtick would have been played out in 2017 already. Yeah. Which is like this like hippy dippy, flowy dress, flowers in your hair.
Everyone in LA though. You know what I mean? Like everyone's playing like pretty cliche characters, I feel like, in that sense.
Yeah. But Ange, who is Robbie's, what's the brother's name again?
So Scott's the brother, yeah.
Yeah, Scott's the brother. Here, now it unfreezes. Scott is kind of this like the like stoic tough guy brother kind of thing, handsome dude, and then Michelle is the hippy dippy L.A. singer songwriter, like Karen Carpenter, but daddy's got money kind of thing, and then Robbie is everything's pretty much from his POV, and then the fourth character of the group, Ange. The relationship between Robbie and Ange also, like, there seemed to not be like any type of sexual tension there when they were like partying and stuff. That, I don't know. That's why maybe that's when it got me kind of in the headspace that he was gay. But
I guess I was reading it differently then, because I was reading it as like Ange, and it's because of something that happens later in the film. Yeah, but that Angela had feelings for Robbie, but Robbie didn't have feelings for her, but had feelings for Michelle. So it's just like that chain of unrequitedness.
Yeah.
And then Scott is just on his own.
Yeah, Scott's just it's just these characters were not developed really at all. So any of these things can be true.
Do you guys think it even mattered? Like, do you think, I mean, I think with what they did with the found footage, I think anyone's relationship in this, I mean, it had no bearing or influence on it at the end of the day either.
No, I mean, yeah, there's parts where it comes, like, we'll get into it, but like when things really hit the fan and all just emotion kind of just goes from almost nothing to a bajillion, like in a minute. There are some things that you could say might have been like some of the inner feelings that come out. I really don't know, but also I get the distinct feeling, Steve, back to your point about like what could have, been some foreshadowing that happened earlier that came to fruition when shit hit the fan. I almost took it as like maybe that wasn't even those people necessarily. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll get into it. It's very convoluted.
So like you're right though, Meg, in saying like none of it matters because it's so developed. Like it's not developed well enough. But the problem is you spend almost an hour with these characters of nothing happening. So that's why you're looking for more.
Yeah.
I think, and I think like anything I did not like about it happened during that time. And I think overall, like, didn't love it, but I think we'll get into exactly what I liked, but there were elements I liked, but I think like that aspect of it just felt so unimportant. And I know, Steve, before we started recording, I was like, this movie could have been at least 20 minutes shorter and it could have been taken off that, because I just felt like it was kind of pointless to try to care about the characters, and like, you know what I mean? I mean, and I don't even think that was its point. Obviously it was like we have these quote unquote SD cards. We're just going to play them. So this is just what's there. But I'm like, you guys got to cut 20 minutes out of that. And it would have been just as effective. You might have had my attention a little bit better. I don't know.
We could have cut it an hour. We could have cut 40 minutes out easy. Like this movie was like an hour and 45, an hour and 50 minutes. And it could, I get it. I think the decision is, you're not worried about having a tight script when this is supposed to be like unadulterated found footage, but it's still a movie and we can only suspend that disbelief so much. And like, it would have been more interesting and more, it would have been more interesting and did more for the character development if there were 10 minutes in there of Robbie making a sandwich and talking to his mom on the phone. You know what I mean? Like something that's completely not part of this story, because the everything you saw on the SD card was directly related to this trip and the things that happen. It already makes no sense that the camera is rolling during some of these things. And you never really get any real character development, even around Robbie that much. I mean, you get some like allusions to his past or perhaps his future and his relationship with his mom and his brother and stuff, but it's so convoluted and so little about the character that it really doesn't hit home in any significant way. So like it just would have been more fun if it was like, oh, Robbie dicking around with the camera while you get it. I don't know.
Well, the only thing that here I'm going to give the movie something like this is that I feel like because it feels really unfinished, it feels like we're missing elements. And I think that feels like more authentic to a found footage type film versus what we've seen a lot, say with the Blair Witch, where it feels like, and there's like this cohesive story. There's like a beginning, middle, end. And this one kind of always feels like it's just going, I don't know. Yeah. So I think it feeds into that and is maybe closer to the idea of a found footage, because it's just a bunch of pointless things that eventually, in theory, were going to be something.
Right. But the flip side to that is when we're talking about like Blair Witch and again, Paranormal Activity, Blair Witch goes from like 0 to 15 because how does it really end? With just like Mike standing in the corner, what do you really see? You see a couple of funny dolls that are made. Paranormal Activity doesn't hit its mark. It doesn't really hit a high point until like it's practically over. This movie goes from 0 to, like Brian said, a bajillion because you get so fucking much happening. and so many weird things, so like, phenomena, because it's so many different things. And I think this movie is also plagiarized, and we'll talk about it later. Yeah. This is a theory I made for myself in my own research. So that will come up later once we start talking about the weird things that happened.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. This is, like I said, at the beginning, you get a lot of stuff about, just establishing that, Michelle is like a singer-songwriter, like Robbie and Scott, have kind of a weird relationship within their family, not just their brothers, but then also, I guess you kind of get alluded to that their dad died. You also get that they kind of have a weird relationship with their mom. They don't really talk to her, or they talk to her, but they don't see her often. Robbie is like the baby. Scott is like the more like distant, stoic older sibling. He does visit his mom's house, and there is, boy, I don't know if this was on purpose. It almost felt a little flat, like slashery, in that you kind of hated all the characters and couldn't wait till they died. But like Robbie is that person, and maybe this is just like really harping on that like 2017 like height of Instagram culture, probably, in that Robbie seems like the kind of person that never does anything without thinking how it could be exploited on social media. You know what I mean?
How does it benefit him, and what transactional way is this good for him?
Yeah, like whenever he's like he does this one little stupid thing that I remembered, and I don't know if it was intentional or what, but when they're in that where the first place they camp the first night, where they're at that like little like lake, and they're swimming in that lake, and he picks up like it's just like a leaf or something that's floating in the water. And you can see he starts like dropping it and moving it around to see if he can get it to do something visually attractive to record.
Right.
And then you're just like, oh, come on, dude, just like enjoy the moment, like live in the moment for at least 1 second of your life. Yeah.
Even when it feels like he's trying to live in the moment, he's like filming the water, and you're getting the sun reflecting off the top of the water as the water moves around. And he's just like, I feel like I never want to leave here. And that feels like such like he would later clip that and then post it to Instagram as a reel, and just like, isn't this so like deep and like amazing? And it's like,
the life, like, look at my life. Like, this is my whole life, or the fact that when he wakes up, or not necessarily wakes up, but just something, all of a sudden an earthquake happens, like a potentially life-threatening event, and the first thing he thinks to do is hit record. You know what I mean?
Twice. Like, it happens twice. He records an earthquake.
Yeah, and it's just like it's I know it speaks a lot about the character, and maybe intentionally, I don't know, but the character is by no means likable.
And then also just back to that lake scene, Michelle's going into the lake, and she has like her bathing suit up her ass and everything, and he's doing creep shots.
A little bit, yeah.
He's doing creep shot. He's like, "Oh, look, some ass.
Oh, hey, look, butt.
This is going on the hard drive for later." Spank, spank.
He also, if you,
I gotta appreciate a good butt. Come on, let's go.
Oh yeah, no, it's good butts.
But there's some good butts in this movie across the board. I will give it that. There's some good butts. You also, if you hate people laughing at stuff that's not funny, which is a huge pet peeve of mine, you got it here. You got it in this movie. There's a lot of people laughing at things that aren't funny out of like nervousness or something. Like the character of Anne, she's like, I have no doubt that like that's not how that human is in real life. But my God, the laughing at things that aren't funny just absolutely drove me nuts. But you do get some early on, I don't know, foreshadowing of very vague things that don't necessarily come to fruition, where as they're driving and he's doing the like angsty teen in the backseat of the car, type of recording and stuff like that. You get these weird like sonic swells, I guess, and like kind of like I don't know how else to describe it. It's almost like a sonic swell, I'll call it, that happens on multiple occasions. That is, they're very clearly trying to tell you that it's there, but you don't know why. It almost sounds like a plane flying overhead, but it is affecting the ambient sound. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not like an engine sound.
Yeah. This is the first part of like, because like they don't really react to it. So like this is the first time like you start getting that non-diegetic sound of like, oh, we're just making weird like loud jump scares for no reason. And Meg and I were talking beforehand, and I told her, I was like, this is if Death Grips made a fucking found footage film, because it's just like a lot of abrasive noise all throughout the film.
Yeah. I that's what I told him. I was like, the second half just felt like all these different like noise projects that I know, like if this would be their music video, this is it.
Yeah. I put down at one point when we were 40 minutes in and like 30 minutes in, 35 minutes in, and like virtually nothing at all had happened, I just wrote down, PSA, the first 30 to 45 minutes of a found footage movie doesn't have to be boring. Like they really it doesn't just have to be filler. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that by nature, a lot of found footage movies are slow burns, which is fine. I get it if that's the direction you're going for, but it was just a slog for the first like 30, at least 30 minutes.
Yeah, it was too much.
Yeah.
Another interesting scene in this first 40 minutes though is when they're in the caves. There's a lot of mining caves out in the Mojave Desert. And I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but like while they're in the caves, you can hear screaming in the background. Like it's lower in the sound mix, but you can hear like women screaming. Yeah, it's a weird thing, but I got annoyed because one of the screams in it is the female Wilhelm scream.
Oh no!
I mean, I'm sure
that classic.
Yeah, I'm sure you recognize it, Brian. And for anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, I've already put it in the post production, and you've heard it.
I'm just gonna start doing that as like my, just like a little talk boy or something like that in my pocket, where I just walk around and just hit that Wilhelm scream like when I walk into a room.
But yeah, it's the famous, it's the female version of the Wilhelm scream. It has a less like recognizable name. It's like female screams 3 times from a audio library, but it was in there in the background. I'm like, fuck, what are you doing? Like, because it happens other times.
They had $15,000.
I understand, but like maybe just don't use the recognizable ones, because there's another one that happens. It's like the metal slashing sound, but it's the metal sound that everybody uses, and it's like, what are you doing? Don't use the one everybody knows. And
I had I ended up going back, because there was a few lines like that people kind of whisper under their breath, and I was like, "Ooh, that's like some sort of little Easter egg that's going to tell me what's happening." But it didn't really. It wasn't. But I did have the subtitles on, and the subtitles tells you every time that noise comes up, it's like metal slashing sound or something. Yeah. It's like some very stereotypical subtitle that comes up.
TV recognizes it.
That
it's from
sound
the good
you've
library
heard a million times, but so finally, so again, we're basically 40 minutes into the movie. Nothing has happened. They finally get woken up one night by some sort of, again, this kind of, they're debating on whether it's thunder. It sounds more like this kind of like sonic swell, sonic boom type of shit. And then also a bunch of subsequent animal noises, coyotes, whatever. It sounds pretty much just like thunder.
I will add, just to interject here, because a couple of the scenes that are happening around here, I thought were like really visually stunning. Like even the sunset when he's like capturing the sounds, or even just the way they shot things a little bit up close. Like I will give this movie a little bit of that. There was some like interesting things to look at.
Yeah. And it's the setting. They did very much use the this setting, which was, I assume it's shot in the Mojave Desert or a similar landscape. It's in the middle of fucking nowhere. They did use their advantage. They got some cool shots. Cinematography took great advantage of that setting. That kind of like moonscape-ish. It just feels like you're on a different planet.
Even just like thinking about later, like even when you see like blood splattered on the desert, it kind of has this like brain element to it that I think kind of makes it a little bit more creepy. But
yeah, and on that dusty kind of surface, that like dusty, craggy surface. Yeah, it does. It looks cool. Did you guys think that when it sounded just like thunder off the bat?
I thought it was gunshots. Like, like it reminded me of like when I'm hiking and I'm near a shooting range and I'm like, it's just far enough where that's initially what it kind of reminded me of.
Yeah, it did. It sounded like that, or like mining, like blasts.
Yeah.
Like dynamite from like blasting a mine.
Yeah. I think there's some sort of mining operation in our like Beaver County area going on. Because I've definitely heard similar like blasts like that. Just like in the middle of the day, and I'm like, what the fuck, is the world coming down? Oh no,
oh yeah, you see it all the time on like the Nextdoor app and stuff. It's like Nancy was like, I just heard a boom and I don't know what it was, and you definitely get that around where we're at. But I don't know, did you guys think they were kind of being bitches about it? I was just like, guys, go back to sleep. It's like it's fine. Like, you don't know you're in a horror movie. Yes, knowing that you're in a horror movie, you should be alarmed. But like, if I was out in the desert and heard like those types of noises, I would just be like, yeah, it's thunder. It's some sort of atmospheric thing. It's mine. Who knows? But just like, I wouldn't come out, walk around, get all freaked the fuck out about it. Like,
one thing we all know is that almost all deserts are testing sites for something.
Yeah, for sure.
Come on, don't be stupid.
But I mean, that's why I would come out to see if there's actually something to see behind it. Like because I mean, I don't know where exactly they are in the Mojave, but it's close to Lake Mead, which is a UFO typey thing. So like, yeah, maybe come out of the tent, see if you catch a UFOs going on. But if not, go to bed. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to see some aliens. Yeah, but like, I guess their reaction that went immediately to like freaked out was annoying to me. I don't know why.
Well, I don't know. It does make sense for Michelle to be freaked out.
Yeah,
because she's just like a city ditzy girl. So like, nature isn't good for her. Like, nature bad for her. It scare her. Nature scare Michelle.
Yeah, but it is, and it's also, but she's also like this, tries to portray this like hippie kind of thing.
That's what I was gonna say. She only likes the nature on the Instagrams.
Yeah,
which is a joke Ange kind of makes about her indirectly. She said she makes mention of like bringing clothes for the shoot that would belong at Coachella. Which that's what Coachella is. Coachella isn't actually about like being out in nature and communing with nature. Coachella is about wearing fucking knit and wicker and going to an expensive music event.
Yeah,
none of them bitches weaved that stuff. No. They didn't do any of the crocheting.
Real hippies
get out of here.
Real hippies can't afford to go to Coachella.
Right? I feel like I'm going to correct. This like the clothes I'm thinking were all macrame. They're not. They're not doing that.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, a skill they don't have.
That's true. Yeah.
What skill does anyone have who goes to Coachella?
I have never been. I can't tell you. I've never been to Coachella. I think Steve, you have.
No, I've been to Bonnaroo. That's different.
You've been to Bonnaroo. You've been to Bonnaroo.
I thought that was a joke because that would be really funny.
No, I was getting Bonnaroo and Coachella mixed up. I've never been to any of those big giant festivals.
Recently that I felt like Bonnaroo was like Coachella light. Maybe it was you guys.
You probably, and I mean, you're not wrong now because they're all owned by Live Nation now. But yeah, like I went before, it was not cool.
It was cool.
Shut up. Opeth played, and I saw Guar on their 25th anniversary at Bonnaroo, so suck my dick.
Oops. I think we can see your face too.
I saw Swans and fucking Flogging Molly.
I saw Flogging Molly at the Cleveland Rib Fest, guys.
Seems so on brand for them.
Yeah. So this is the point when I think, is it this first night? I'm trying to remember because there's some repetitiveness that happens here. Is this the first night where everyone kind of fucks off back to bed and Robbie goes wandering out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's the first night.
The first night Robbie fucks off and then he sees the light.
Yes, he sees this.
Did he see the axe that night too?
No.
Okay.
No, that's second night. But yeah, this night he does see this kind of light, which, I mean, it looks like if the desert had a glowing vagina, kind of that like shows up, and it's just like that's what it looks like. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's just like this type of like glow. But then there's also like a strobe like portion to it. I don't know.
I'm not gonna lie. I wish they would have just been a little bit smarter about shooting. And I'm saying this because when I stayed out in the desert in Joshua Tree, I was like, it was full moon. Mm-hmm. And I felt like it had such an interesting lighting, like almost felt like I was like on the moon, that I feel like if they would have tried to like film this movie there, I think things might have felt a little different too.
Yeah, it's mostly pitch black.
Yeah.
With just like a very subtle glow on the horizon you see, and otherwise all you're seeing is essentially the light on the camera. That's your POV. It's from Robbie. It's the light on the camera.
And it helps in some scenes, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a found footage, POV found footage type of thing. But anyway, they wake up in the morning and like animals are acting weird, insects are acting weird. There's a bunch of bees around. I don't know. They keep seeing these donkeys that are
I'm glad
just
you brought that up, Brian.
Yeah, just kind of standing around.
So we get a little horse rating in this, you know, like.
Yeah, I mean, these are cousins of horses. These are hybrid horses.
Horse adjacent.
Yeah, horse adjacent.
Horse adjacent stars, you know, they'll get 3 out of 5 today.
3 out of 5? That's pretty good.
I think it is pretty good, you know, because we got to see them a few times.
They're good-looking donkeys.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
Yeah, they're handsome.
These are definitely show donkeys. They're taken care of. They're not dusty ass wild donkeys.
They're not dusty ass donkeys. Oh, these are like manicured, pristine donkeys. You know, aside from that, everything is pretty okay, but they're already kind of starting to freak out already. Apparently, Michelle had a dream about her dead mother, and it's just like, I don't care. Like,
was anyone else annoyed
be a professional, Michelle.
Well, Ange was just like talking shit for her crying, and I was like, dang, vicious.
Yeah,
but also,
Ange is cold as ice.
Well, it's literally like the 5th time we've heard Michelle bring up her goddamn dead mother. So you can only imagine all the times the camera isn't on and she's annoying the shit out of Angela.
Michelle, everyone dies. We get it. Fuck you. We get it. Your mom's dead. Blah. But she's being a real bitch about her dead mom. And then Ange is cold as ice because she's like, assume that Robbie and Ange don't know each other super well. I got that like Scott and Ange were friends. And Ange just like throws Robbie under the bus. Literally the morning of day 2 is like, you're disorganized and you're an asshole and this is all going to shit because you didn't do a thing or whatever. And it's like, it's not like Blair Witch where you got that whole thing with the map and them fighting and everything getting to a boiling point. It's just like last night there was some thunder, I guess, and now everyone's freaking out the next morning. It's just like
mildly like a trope, you know, in a sense for found footage films. I was actually thinking about that, of like there's always that moment where people are like, guys, we should probably leave. This shit's just like a little weird and we should go. And I feel like Robbie played that card of like he was the one being like, no, let's stay. Let's finish this. We have to finish this. We have a deadline. And I feel like is that a trope for
Yeah, I think so. But it never comes to that. And it's never like the anxiety is never really earned that much at that point. If it would have been just like hey, that was kind of weird, maybe take 5 minutes out of the 40 minutes of nothing at the beginning of the movie and make the anxiety and like the social and professional pressures, let that simmer up a little bit more instead of the 40 minutes of them just fingering themselves at the beginning of the fucking movie. You know what I mean?
Just dick farting around.
Yeah. But between
dick farting here.
Yeah.
Between the earthquakes and like they keep making mention of like weird atmospheric stuff, not only the sonic swells thing that you're hearing as the audience, but also they say stuff like, I feel like the air is buzzing. They just say like dumb vague shit like that.
They start telling you about vibes that there's no visual element of.
Yeah. They were like, yeah, exactly. You have to take them for granted, but it's also just like very much said in passing. And then there is this scene where they are actually finally get around to going out and shooting the music video. And it's just Robbie and Michelle, and they come upon this mound, this little like hill, and they're saying that
well, that's where that lightning or whatever, so the thing they saw, I think, because I think that was when Robbie walked around, he saw it almost come out of that thing, and so that's why they went to, it's why he took her to it.
Yeah, it's some sort of
the way I saw it.
I think you're right. Yeah, it's some sort of like, I don't know. I'm going to say burial mound because I think that that's kind of the direction all this goes to. But there's a hole in the ground, and they go from like just like we're shooting this music video, and again, it's like there's nothing cool about it at all. It's super lame. And then all of a sudden they're like fucking sonic sleuths all of a sudden, and they're like sticking the microphone in the hole in the ground. They're like putting their head up to the fucking burial mound like they're Sam Neill on the fucking Triceratops in Jurassic Park. Like, it's just like all of a sudden they're speculating about all this. Something's happening underground. I don't know. Which
is so stupid because he puts the microphone in the hole in the ground and you get this super abrasive noise coming out of it because it's just like this metallic echo, and it's hollow, and it's a reverb, and there's probably screams in the mix, and there's all kinds of shit in this mix.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly loud just for us as viewers. And then Robbie is wearing headphones while he's doing this, and then puts his head to the ground to hear something. You're not going to hear anything. You're going to hear all that screaming in your fucking head. You're
hearing
jackass.
What we're hearing, you dick.
Yeah.
And then also he makes some like very offhanded comment about his camera batteries haven't went down at all the entire time they were there. But he's like not really concerned about it. He's just like, oh, the earth is recharging my camera for me. Sick. Like that's
See, Robbie's an idiot because he knows that when you have batteries out in the cold, they get used up really quick. So he just thought reverse. Oh, it's hot out here, so batteries long.
Batteries don't die in the desert.
Yeah.
Finally, I think we're like 55 minutes in, and then something creepy finally happens. It's basically it's at night, and shit's kind of hitting the fan a little bit. People are starting to get creeped out. Essentially what happens is they just like wake up. There's a lot of screaming. There's a lot of chaos. Specifically, you hear Ange and Michelle just like screaming, freaking out, like pleading for their lives. Scream like they're fucking losing it. And Robbie, of course, in that scenario, he doesn't get up and just fucking run or try to save anybody. He gets his camera out, as one does.
Well, Brian, I think you're missing a very important part of this, and it's an invention of this film, is that the booms are happening again. And Robbie goes out to investigate again, and he sees a guy standing on the hillside holding an axe.
Yes.
And then he gets hit in the head with the axe, to which he just wanders off and replies, "My head is raining."
Yeah, that's true. I was getting mixed up. I was thinking that happened after all the shit hit the fan.
No. That's what causes the shit to hit the fan. And then,
right. Yeah.
And then this is an invention of this film. It creates a new type of unreliable narrator, which is cameraman with a head injury.
But the thing is,
I never thought about it that way, but that is like a weird turning point for all of this. Yeah.
Yeah. I just immediately thought of the old SNL massive head wound Harry.
Yeah.
Phil Hartman.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Well, you know what? You're right, but the camera doesn't have a head wound.
No, but he does wind up just like not pointing it at anything for the rest of the film.
Yeah, but like we're seeing all this and then he goes, wild shit. It would have been better if it was like, yeah, he's got a head wound. Okay, fine. He's been smacked in the head with an axe. And it is kind of a cool scene. There's like, it's very dim. And you actually saw... Okay, so you come to realize, you see this character multiple times. In fact, at some point, they're just like... fucking playing Ring Around the Rosie basically together. It's this guy. He's seemingly covered in blood, and he's naked, and he's holding an axe, right?
Mm-hmm. He was a pretty creepy character. I think, like, I don't know if the way I was looking at him, like, it looked like his leg was almost really fucked up, or they were like different sizes, or it was like a bone leg of sorts.
Yeah, he had a fucked up leg. He was you actually saw him earlier from a distance in the daylight, I think it was. Whenever Robbie is like panning around and shooting around the lake bed area. But it's one of those like Easter egg kind of shots where like the cameraman doesn't notice it, but you just kind of go past it and you see him like in red off in the distance, which I thought was kind of creepy. I had to do the like little rewind thing and watch it again. But anyway, more to come about this cat, but he essentially whacks Robbie in the head with the axe, and then Robbie's all whacked out poo brain, stumbling around, and he the camera goes off. It comes back on at some point. So the camera, this is the thing that I didn't like because it doesn't make any fucking sense. The camera becomes Robbie's, like literally becomes Robbie's eyes. So it's a found footage. So the POV. So the camera is Robbie, and it's from Robbie's point of view, but it's also kind of it's the audience's eyes, right? But in this instance, it's almost like, and Steve, you said he has a head wound. It's almost like the camera has a head wound too. So so now all of a sudden, everything we're seeing is unreliable. It's not like we're seeing it through Robbie's eyes. We're seeing it through a camera, but now the camera is unreliable too, which doesn't really make a whole fucking lot of sense. But somebody starts wiling out on the tent. There's a bunch of like somebody's like breaking into the tent or something. I don't know. And then Scott's like telling somebody to tuck him in. I think you see Michelle, seemingly dead. You see like a bloody corpse kind of thing, and it has like blonde hair. It's clearly supposed to be Michelle.
But like at this point, almost everyone's bloody in some way. Every time we see them,
yeah, everyone's covered in blood. Like yeah, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Everyone is always covered in blood from here on out.
Colony. Everyone's covered in blood.
Naked, covered with blood.
Is it a guar nudist colony?
I wish. So, I mean, you do kind of get later. We get something that feels like if you would have panned out, would have been a guar set piece.
Yeah,
but,
you never see the monsters, so you can just imagine it's guars.
Yeah. So finally, Robbie starts like moving and pointing this flashlight around, and he's just finding a bunch of blood and like gore all over the ground. He's kind of following it around, and he does come up on Ange, and she's covered in blood. And she's like, what the fuck is happening? Help me. Don't leave me. Blah, blah, blah.
And then she gets real horny.
Well, later she does get all horny. No, this is early. She's not horny. She's decidedly not horny at this point.
Okay.
But she does get horny later. And then you get all the sound is like distorted and shit like that. This part, I was like, oh, God, this whole thing's so fucking predictable. Then he wakes up in the morning Robbie, and he is apparently like chilled down between a couple of rocks until the morning. And then I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I just thought this whole thing was going to be essentially them stumbling in the dark and fucking getting chased by a monster or some shit. But they wake up, or Robbie wakes up, and then you get this like shot of Robbie getting up out of this little like crevice, third person, but then he goes back and gets the camera. I don't know. Some of the way things were shot wasn't really consistent with it. This is also when you could kind of hear
like a weird conversation or phone call with his mom.
Not quite yet at this point, I don't think. I don't think we've got to that yet. This is when he first comes up out of the little cavern. It's the first morning after the shit hit the fan. And it's in its bright daylight. And then this is where he first sees all the screaming bloody snakes. So there are these creatures, which I was like, oh, fuck, okay. I'm kind of psyched about the direction this is going. I literally wrote down, first cool thing, it's over an hour. There are these little, worms, snakes that are bloody and screaming, shuffling around all over the ground in the middle of the desert. And Robbie's terrified, and they're like going between his legs. They're like, yeah, they're just screaming bloody snakes. Yeah. I don't know how else to put it. And I'm like, oh, fuck, that's kind of wild. I like that.
Yeah. And then like one gets trapped in a bush, and it's like, but like there's
yeah, one gets trapped in some jaggers.
Yeah, some jaggers and it don't like it. But like there's so many cuts and like nothing is allowed to play out in a way that feels meaningful. Like you see all this shit and you go, oh, that's crazy, but oh, now it's gone. That's crazy. Oh, that's gone. Nope, that's crazy. I can't see anything. And now it's gone.
Yeah. And it's almost like I said, it's almost like the camera has lost its mind. Mm-hmm. It's turning off, turning on. It's almost like you can imagine, it almost feels like it's just like affixed to Robbie. Because he's not carrying it. It's not like he's walking around with it up to his head. He's constantly just like putzing around going like, oh, I'm me, or whatever. And just like basically he's disoriented. He wouldn't, in his current mental state, it makes no sense for him to keep the camera up during the day. Maybe at night for the light, but during the day, it makes no sense. So you're kind of imagining that it's like it's just in his hand, like just incidentally, it happens to be in his hand and he's just shambling around covered in blood. Like he finds a flashlight, okay, at some point, and he just assumedly now time becomes unreliable at some point as well. So who knows how long he's like wandering around during the day, but he does find a flashlight, and then he says he's sorry to the flashlight, and then it's nighttime. I don't know.
It's a real funny way to put it. It's just like he finds a flashlight, apologizes to the flashlight, and then goes to bed.
Yeah, and then it's nighttime again. It doesn't make it. But he's starting to find that like. Shit went wild at some point. He's finding a lot of like, I would say clues, but the clues aren't really leading us anywhere. Like I said, he does appear to find Michelle's body. And then he strips naked, and then he finds something, I think, right? Like, and this is one of the things where it's like, he does put the camera down and his mom calls. And so you get like this, his mom's voicemail, like that she left him. And then he seems to find something like over yonder. And he's definitely at this point feels to like he's not just like confused head injury. It's almost like he's under some sort of spell. And then I wrote, he is Robbie, because he does say on multiple occasions that he is Robbie. And then the guy with the axe shows back up, and then you get this, like, for a quick second, the Blair Witch front facing, nose run, snotty nose shot. Animal noises, bloody axe guy just is always kind of hanging around, just like standing close by. You never see who it is. You just see legs. So like Meg said, there's like a leg. His leg's kind of dicked up, but he's also all covered in blood. So you don't really know like why that's happening.
And Robbie's always pointing the light at like him, at the monsters. Like you don't ever stop to think that they're going to see those things and like respond to the light.
Yeah, it's almost like why I wish Robbie would have stayed more in his, like, had his wits about him at least a little bit. Mm-hmm. So some of the things that he did made sense.
Right.
So you don't know when Robbie's in trouble or not in trouble, because Robbie's always just in trouble. He's always just wandering around going, help me, I'm Robbie, and shit like that.
Help, my brain is wet.
I just feel like this this and like the rest of the type of movie just comes off to me like one giant abduction or alien abduction, where he's just reliving the same thing kind of like over and over and over again.
Loop. There's definitely a time loop thing, which we start to get some hints to soon, which I just occurred to me. It would have been great because Robbie does continuously talk about how he's Robbie. And it reminded me of another movie we saw recently. And the quote, where the munchies. And I just funny because at some point, spoiler alert, there is 2 Robbies, and it would have been cool if they're like, where the Robbies?
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, more POV, just kind of fumbling around by Robbie. He eventually gets thrust into some blood lake. I don't know. You get this like wormhole, like you literally get an image of basically like a tunnel. It looks like some sort of dirt tunnel. So you're assuming Robbie's getting sucked into the earth or something, and there's some sort of dang old blood lake underneath the desert. That's how I took it. But also
he must be cleansed.
Yeah, but also like you never get any type of answers because he gets splashed around in some blood water, and you hear all these crazy noises and whatever, and he's in the water, and it's red and whatever, and then all of a sudden it's just daytime, and he's just like puking up the blood water, and then his skin it's almost like he's molting.
Right. He gets like some
skin's
sort of
coming off his legs.
Yeah, he gets some sort of membrane on him. That he starts pulling off.
Yeah, it reminded me of The Matrix, when he comes out when he's reborn in the real world kind of thing. That's what it reminds me of. He's got like some sort of like weird film on him or something like that. And I think that's kind of what they're trying to suggest is like he's continually like reborn into the same timeline. Like I said, there's some sort of wormhole time jumping type of thing here, and I'll give you guys my theory on it as well. I know Steve has a theory also, but we'll talk about what we think is actually happening because you never get any type of real answers. Then just then in the distance, he sees some people walking in the desert, and Robbie is like, "Hey, I'm Robbie. And he's like yelling at them, trying to get their attention, but they don't seem to respond. And then he catches up to one of them, but they're covered in blood, and they run away from him. It's Michelle seemingly.
Well, see, I think that was different. That was just like a different. Again, because of the cutting, but I mean, I think you're right that it follows sequentially. But like, he's essentially seeing
2 different instances.
Yeah, he's essentially seeing their foursome, and then he's calling out, and then I believe the Robbie he's seeing stops. I believe it's the Robbie he's seeing, but the Robbie
they don't show it to you, but essentially because it's from a distance, you just see 4 figures, but you come to realize pretty quickly that he's seeing their initial trek into the desert kind of thing.
Yeah. And then after that, he sees a Michelle, and that Michelle's covered in blood, and he chases her across the desert.
And he's like, wait for me. And she's like, no.
Yeah.
And they like,
this is like hallucinating in the desert on acid.
Yeah. The whole thing is very much feels like that. Time is kind of just, like I said, you're definitely getting this little time loop situation. And then it's night again, and Robbie hears Michelle singing this like annoying hippie song, and he goes into the tent and finds his brother, and he's all covered in blood too, but he seems just kind of like confused. And then this is where you really get the things start to come together a little bit in terms of the time loop, because Scott, the brother, starts basically replaying the night that they first went outside. So he's like, what's that noise? Oh, well, let's go look, unzip the tent, all this stuff. But he's covered in blood. So you're seeing that these events are happening again, and there's some sort of time loop, wormhole shit if you hadn't picked up on it already. But they find Ange again, or he finds Ange again, and he just starts like saying a bunch of Jesus stuff. He just starts like praying and stuff, and like reciting all these prayers and Bible verses and stuff. He leaves the tent, so he's like, I'm out of here. Goes out of the tent, and he's in his mom's house, which I was like, oh, sick. This is good. Okay, this is my set. I'm really trying to give this a lot of chances because I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is unexpected. But he comes out of the tent. He's in his mom's house. And she's bummed, and she's also covered in blood. But it's very dark. And I kept thinking something really cool was going to happen. The mom's just basically like, this is lame. And then like Scott, the brother, he sees him in what looks like a mirror, but then the mirror is like an airplane window, and it's like the airplane's taking off. So I don't know if this is some foreshadowing or this is some like going back to the flight to get there. I don't, it's never clear, but he's basically kind of coming to terms with the fact that he can't save his brother at this point. So his brother, I don't know if his brother's dead or he kills his brother, but it's his brother seems unaware of what's happening and is just like sitting inside a plane, but he's looking, it's almost like he's on the outside of the plane, like Twilight Zone style, like he's on the wing looking in kind of thing.
For him being his brother, like they have so little interaction once shit goes wild.
They do.
And it's just like, and that's one of the lesser satisfying things is because they never like, I don't know, you never really discover anything about their relationship because Scott just fucks off.
Yeah. And you can tell he's supposed to be like I said, a little stoic, a little bit more distant. And, you know, even when they're like drinking and smoking cigars and doing like brother stuff, like we're a couple of definitely straight brothers, you know, early on, like let's drink whiskey out of a snail and I don't know, fucking smoke a cigar. There's a lot of like emotional distance between them, I guess. I don't know if I'm giving the movie too much credit, but that's kind of how I took it.
I definitely feel like I mean, I appreciate what you're doing, but I feel like you're pulling a me and you're like, man, like putting meaning into this movie in a lot of ways. You know what I mean?
Definitely be doing that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the intention was.
I mean, I have a theory too, but we can touch on that.
We're going to have a big theory roundup at the end.
Big theory corner coming on up. Michelle's dead mom makes like a quick little cameo, I guess. And then he runs up on like a naked, bloody dude, but you think it's like one of the donkeys laying down, but it's some sort of giant, I don't know. I'm going to say giant bloody donkey monster. I don't know. You never get any type of
definitely making donkey noises a little bit. Yeah.
You're not getting any type of remotely clear image of it, but it's just, he's just, I don't know, standing by it. He's not necessarily wrestling with it or even kind of interacting with it. It's just he's near it.
Yeah.
And it's a confusing scene.
It's so poorly like lit that you get no sense of the space that you're in and where the monster is comparatively and where like the monster you don't get a clear sense of the monster's face. I think at one point maybe Robbie is lying down and filming up at it.
If that was the case, I didn't even get that perspective. It reminded me of like there is a big monster laying down and Robbie is just like feeling around in the dark like one of those, you know, haunted houses where you're touching the spaghetti and the grapes. Like that's really what it felt like to me.
And this is the donkey monster's skin.
Well, because you never feel like, besides the noises, nothing that's happening physically on screen is suggesting anything really that threatening.
Right.
About it, because you never can make out, like I said, its face or its extremities or anything like that.
I think everything only feels like a touch like above how scary it is, or even insinuates the scariness is because of how I think quick and chaotic it is. I think it doesn't give you time to like rationalize what you're seeing or what you're experiencing in it.
I don't know why this is such a stretch, but to me, I was just imagining the director sitting there like he's trying to like imagine the one of the really great like monster scenes in the void and trying to bring that to fruition in this like this desert environment, and it's just not happening.
You know what? Some of the special effects kind of reminded me of The Thing a little bit.
Yeah.
Like at least the snakes a little bit, and maybe even this character or this like pseudo donkey thing where it's just like kind of looking really wet and grimy and like I don't know, like
it's wet. It's a moist. It's a moisty boy.
What is it about being wet that makes something a little bit more scary?
it makes it easier to create as a practical effect. You just put a bunch of petroleum jelly and wet it down, and it's going to look better.
It taps into that inner human nature of like the last thing you want is a wet handshake, and then just imagine, scaled up 100 times, and now you like
that's a beer name. That's
wet
a beer
handshake.
name right there. A wet handshake.
It's gonna be other half's next IPA.
Yeah, wet handshake. That's actually a good idea. Is just making a beer and it just in like a little starburst on the bottom just says extra wet.
Ooh. Oh, that's a wet hop. It's a wet hop.
How many different ways can you say
wet hop, extra wet?
How many different ways can you say wet on a can?
Yeah,
add moist.
Add moist. People hate that. I like that. Anyway, you get back to the tent. Ange is there. This creature kind of attacks the tent, but then that kind of makes Ange horny. And my notes during this section, I'm like, are funny because I go, this is me writing notes actively, like as I'm watching the movie. Now back at the tent and Ange is there. Creature attacks the tent, but does Ange kind of get horny for a sec? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Or did I imagine that? Blood snakes tie them up. Ange is definitely horny now. We get some bloody tit rubbing, which is kind of sick. That's my notes. So there's Ange, just being bloody and wet and horny and just rubbing her tits, while Robbie recites blessings. And
Robbie is Tradcath, so this is all uncool with him.
I didn't anticipate things getting there wasn't any indication, because normally when there's some this didn't strike me as a not that it's not a demon or something like that, but nothing satanic about this. Mm-hmm. It's more cosmic or skinwalkery, I'll say. Yeah. It never came across as satanic. So when all the churchy talk from Robbie and the sexual elements, which usually are more of pent up religious stuff, this didn't really feel religious up until this point.
You didn't know aliens are really horny?
Yeah, I feel if this is aliens or skinwalkers or something, they don't care about probes. They don't care about your morality and your god shit. You know what I mean?
They just want to see you fuck.
Yeah, just do something weird. You know what I mean? Anyway, so Robbie does find the bloody axe, and then some demon, Captain Howdy or whatever goes, show them, and then he's getting splashed around in the bloody ocean again. And in this instance, to me, and maybe this was just me, the second time he goes into the blood water, it sounds like an ocean. Mm-hmm. Whereas the first time it's just he might have been in an underground cavern or something. I don't know. You never really see the environment, but it sounded like I could feel like him getting thrashed around by a tide. Mm-hmm.
Well, visually, I think it was that scene too, and it was definitely upside down, which I thought was another interesting cinematography move, where it was there was an ocean. You could definitely see waves crashing. Yeah,
because I think it's Scott is in front of him, and you see a wave go over his head. So it's definitely
that's right. Yeah. Well, then there's also it's meant to be very disorienting. And I wrote at this point, now you're on the exterminator at Kennywood. You're just getting spun around, and then he gets spit out, and you see a sign that says, it's a warning sign that says you shouldn't be here or something, but you can't really make it out because he's standing on it and it's in the sand too. And then he sees himself with the axe, and he says, "Hi, I'm me," and then he bails.
Yeah.
But so that's when you get the idea that the creepy guy with the axe the whole time was another Robbie, or it was him on a different timeline or whatever. Surprise, surprise. You kind of could see where that was going, but He finds his friends then, but they're just their heads on pikes, which again took a little bit of a wacky turn. The last like 15 minutes, I'll say, this movie goes pretty hard, which I do appreciate. Because you didn't see. Here's the one thing I'll say about this movie. Never knew where it was going. I never had super high expectations, but they did take some big old fucking swings, which I always appreciate. So you get the three friends' heads on pikes. And they're all decomposed and tore up and shit like that. He sings
pulled
a
total Urkel too in this situation. He's like, "Did I do that?" You know what I mean? Like, we fucking know you did it.
He does pull a Steve Urkel. Oh my god, he does. So you're starting to get this idea that like, okay, Robbie went balls out, went wild, and killed him, or Robbie got taken over by something. I don't know. I don't like there's the cliche of singing a creepy song while creepy things are happening. Like, I could have done without that. But so here's where things get like even wackier. You're already like, whoa, heads on a pike, sick. He finds what I'll describe as a shark tooth. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's a shark tooth, right?
It could be a shark tooth. You did see some spikes on the whatever monster like beforehand. So it could have been like a spike that fell off, or and it goes with my theory that it could be a dinosaur tooth.
Oh, we got dinosaurs.
Okay, so at first I thought it was an arrow. I thought it was an arrowhead at first, but then once you see it closer, it's clearly a tooth, a big sharp tooth. It looks like a shark's tooth, or something along those lines. And pretty quickly you see Robbie. He starts like really getting after himself with this tooth. He cuts his own dick off.
Oh, this is solid. This is fucking solid. The next 2 minutes.
It does go so bonkers. You're just like, oh, he's going to like, oh, he's cutting himself with the shark tooth, whatever. And then you're just like hearing him ripping at himself. And all of a sudden you see a severed dick.
Which he framed very well.
Stop playing with your dick, bud.
It's so, they don't hide it at all. It's a dick. You see a big old severed dick. Not big old like it's a big old dick. It's just a severed dick. And you're like, damn, bro, did not expect to see a severed dick right this very second.
Then he plays with it.
What do you think what did you think he was doing? Like, what do you think he was cutting off?
He was just like mutilating himself, just like cutting himself with it. I did not go right to cut the dick off. But he did. And then he starts like disemboweling himself. And he pulls out his guts, and we get this like POV shot of him just like walking around with his guts hanging out. And now at this point, you know, shit's serious because he makes a conscious decision. It's a good time to put the camera down. This is when dick's off, guts are out. Do away with this camera. He walks off.
Now he can really be himself.
Into frames, but it's from behind, so now he can really be himself.
Another great butt.
You see his butt, and then he does a John Bender Breakfast Club fist bump as the credits roll.
Don't you forget about me.
There was more like he was like there's an airplane. He was like trying to get the airplane.
And see,
he's trying to.
I took that as if you remember, it's earlier in the film when they're flying towards the desert or flying over the desert and he's filming it. I took that as he's like trying to reach up at the airplane that's passing over and he's on that airplane.
Yeah, he's on that airplane. Yeah.
Like, stop. Like,
trying to warn himself.
I feel like a lot of things would be easily explained if it's just like they're dead. Like, everyone's dead here. All of it just like now can make sense. But I feel like that's a cop out. But I feel like talking about alternative timelines and the fact that we saw that this was like a testing area, there's just some other weird shit going on that I think like is messing with like, you know, some sort of space time configuration that they're experiencing. And I do think there's aliens. I do think there's something alien.
Sure.
about it.
See, here's my theory. It's pretty straightforward. It's a dang old Skinwalker. I thought this was a Skinwalker situation.
Okay.
Like Skinwalker Ranch, if you're familiar, because there's a lot of weird anomalous shit going on. There's a lot of stuff with time. There's a monster like that. There's shape shifting potentially, which the donkeys then are monsters, then are maybe Robbie. I don't know. But it's really just immediately, even like halfway through the movie, I wrote down the note of, is this some Skinwalker shit? Like, that's how I thought. Now it could be aliens. I wrote could be aliens. Could be some sort of like government radiation thing that's like fucking up the electronics and your brains and all that stuff. But I'm thinking it's a Skinwalker, or Robbie is some sort of like Manchurian Candidate type situation, and the vibrations make him, flip out and kill everyone. I don't know. But I think it's a dang old Skinwalker.
Yeah, could be. My theory is all encompassing, because it is that they plagiarized the website Mojave Mysteries as curated by M.L. Berman. So
wait, say this again.
It is a plagiarism of the website mojavemysteries.com.
Okay.
Curated by M.L. Berman. And he appears to be just this kind of middle-aged dude who's out in the Mojave Desert recording YouTube videos about all the weird things happening going on. But and so I found this site doing research because I'm trying to find more about like this movie. Like, I need something to make sense for myself. And like I said, I thought it was like dinosaurs, because you see the tooth, and the tooth is pretty pristine. Like it just came out of a gift shop or something, or maybe it just fell out of the monster's mouth. And so I did some research, and I was like, is there dinosaurs in the Mojave Desert? Because like if there's a time loop going on, then the time loop could be bringing dinosaurs back.
And that could explain all the weird sounds of the animals. Is just like, there's some sort of like time loop where there's, animals from throughout history that can move through this.
They just got trapped in that fucking hole in their time, but it gets mixed together as all the times come together. And then and the other thing is the worms. I was like, well, maybe those are like super prehistoric, like flatworms that are like carnivorous flatworms, and we just don't know those. So like doing that research, I found this website, and there was a story from like 1902 of like a dinosaur being spotted in the Mojave Desert.
Okay.
And this dude, like this crazy ass miner, like said he saw a dinosaur. Then he went back to town, gathered up a posse, as one is to do at that time. Sure. And then they went back out to the desert and never found it. So, it disappeared.
Okay.
There's plenty of paleontology out there as well that find a lot of fossils. And then another story I found that I think ties in really well with this movie is about the Devil's Hole.
Oh, that sounds sick. I mean, I think I have a subscription to Devil's Hole that I haven't. It was a free trial situation. I forgot to cancel it.
Again, you would never cancel a subscription. That's just you. But so the Devil's Hole is this oasis-like lake that actually dumps into like a deeper underground cavern lake, like we've been talking about.
Yes.
And it is actually on protected, government protected land. And they say because there's some sort of fish that only exists in this lake, so you got to protect it. But there is a story of like there's some kids who snuck in past the government barrier, like 4 of them, and they went night scuba diving. And then only one of them came back, and then they never found the bodies of the other 3. So it's like a fun portal. And then just like generally, there's a whole bunch of other things that connect to this. Like you're saying, skinwalkers. You got the UFOs. There's another story, I didn't read into it, but like apparently, like at some point there were 30 dudes who were found dead and naked. Nobody knows why.
In the Mojave Desert.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sick.
Yeah, wild shit happens in the desert.
Were their penises gone?
I don't know. I didn't read the story, Meg. I just said I didn't.
Yeah, but
well, I mean, I feel like
how
that
are
would
you
be an
going to not Google
important note.
if their dicks are gone?
Well,
Do your research, Steve. No, but that's really interesting. That I didn't really dig into this at all.
I was just looking for
but
something.
That Devil's Hole thing literally sounds like exactly what this is based on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would almost be surprised.
Steve solved it. I feel some closure to this movie now. I really do.
And especially like the fact that I mentioned it briefly, but when he does get sucked into the underground blood waters, you literally see a POV up through like a hole. Mm-hmm. So like that would be the Devil's Hole. So I mean that sounds pretty clear cut that it's like I'm buying that it's the Devil's Hole now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They also have a Bigfoot of their own, and it's called the Cement Monster. So there's
it sounds sick.
Yes, they got a bunch of crazy
Cement
things.
Monster. It just sounds like a Scooby-Doo monster, you know, which I love.
Yeah. He has like blocks as feet.
I imagine him as just like that big mud monster kind of thing. That's what I'm imagining.
And also, apparently,
he's really heavy.
Apparently, Charles Manson was a big fan of the Devil's Hole as well, and was like into like.
I feel like we need to stop saying Devil's Hole. Like I'm becoming a 5-year-old every time you say it.
No, Charles Manson, guy loves the Devil's Hole.
But yeah, he was apparently trying to get his followers. That's where they were going to hole up. During the Helter Skelter race war. So
gotcha, the Devil's Hole.
Yep.
Sick. Yeah, no, that's interesting. Now I do want to go like get high and watch YouTube videos on the Devil's Hole. Because that does make a lot of sense around, because there, you know, not just is there shit happening, you know, below the surface. It almost feels like a mashup of different things. Like I said, the time loop, the time jumping thing, and there's some sort of fucking who knows what wormhole or some shit like that happening. But the fact that they were at this lake and then they get thrown into it, another body of water that seems to be underground, it seems like it makes a lot of sense. But hey,
and then rocketed into space.
Yeah. And and then I kind of just breezed over that because frankly it was like probably my least favorite part of the movie, and it doesn't really tell you anything, but there's this kind of like right up until the end, essentially right before Robbie cuts his dick off and wiles out, there is a portion where I think it's after he comes out of the water, or it's in when Robbie's having an episode, he ends up in a room with some Christmas lights. That's essentially it.
It does sound like my personal hell.
Yeah, the camera bounces around, and it's almost like you could say that somebody is like, it reminds me of a cross between somebody just playing around in the dark with Christmas lights and like the beginning of It's a Wonderful Life, where there's like the constellations kind of glowing and stuff, and they're talking. It just, so it's almost like Robbie got the cosmic element is, you know, Robbie got a look at the unknowable or something, and that caused him to want to, you know, cut his dick off and shit. So this is like it just feels vaguely, not even specifically Lovecraftian, but just like cosmic horror-y. Right. You saw the unknown, the unseeable, you know, the unknowable. And then that makes you just like, wild the fuck out. So
it's applying Lovecraft to like Old Town Minor, you know, tall tales.
Yeah. I've been reading and listening to a lot of, weird fiction, cosmic horror, short stories and stuff like this. And that ending feels very much of that, almost stereotypical of that genre. But
I feel like learning about this website and in these stories kind of maybe makes me like it a little bit more. But I wish that maybe they would have like come out with that. And I think, I don't know, because it does, like you said, it does feel plagiarized the way it is, but it feels so on point.
Yeah.
Did that change your perspective on it when you found that?
I mean, it kind of makes me feel a little better now that I have, because I think there's a definite connection to the Devil's Hole story. And then because, you know, we went through the whole government protection thing and all that. And like you see the government protected sign in the film next to the out of time gas mask, which is like from, the early 1900s or whatever. So yeah, like it makes me feel a little bit better, but not as much, because it becomes like a Field in England.
Yeah.
But A Field in England is so much like more, it's that film is satisfying without knowing all the Druid shit and all of the, Civil War of England. It's satisfying without that, because it's well shot and it's just a nice film to look at. There's a lot more going on. This isn't fun to look at, and there's an hour of nothing.
Yeah.
So
it's like, this could have been a really cool concept. And I get why they did the found footage, is because you can make it really cheaply. Right. And obviously that you set out to make a movie with $15,000. There's only so much you can do. So for that being said, I think they did a great job utilizing the resources that they had. Of course, it seems lacking in the storytelling part of it. And I imagine if you asked the director, he might say that that's by design. But I do think it still suffers from the fact that they didn't have the budget to tell a deeper part of a big, giant cosmic story. And it was just a very like wishful thinking to think that they can make something that tells the story in a cohesive way. And then I can imagine, this is a lot of speculation on my part, but I can imagine the movie maybe not coming together in the editing room in the way that maybe they envisioned. And then they were like, okay, well, let's just keep it really vague.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But it just didn't. The care isn't there for the movie to support that amount of like vagueness. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if I'm doing a great job describing that, but that's
I get what you're saying, because like I kind of feel the same way, and I have like it would be one of those things where we have to actually ask Robbie and get like an honest answer out of him, but like because the relationships between characters are so tenuous and like vague. It's one of those things, like when you're writing a script to the film, you would have like character bios for all of these characters and like what their relationships are. So maybe he knows what the answer is of like how all of these people relate and what they are, but it doesn't come across as well because the film is so choppy and you only see sporadic moments. And then what's filmed, it just makes you wonder, how much does he actually know what their relationship is, considering how much we get filmed, and it doesn't satisfy.
I think you're onto something about explaining the way I feel about it. Is with A Field in England, it's vague intentionally, but you can tell, and I feel 100% confident saying that the story, he is choosing to tell you less.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? In A Field in England.
Well, the clues are there.
Yes.
You can find the clues and you can learn all the history, and like, like A Field in England is more specifically hard for us as Americans because we don't know English history as well.
Right.
So we're not as familiar with, the English Civil War and like Druidic practices. But that's the thing. You can always look more into a Ben Wheatley film, even his newer one, In the Earth.
Yeah.
Which, not as many people love as much, but you can still look into it and discover like about the plants that he's kind of talking. So like,
and like this movie, I find it hard to give the director or even just the story in general as much credence and say, it doesn't feel like there's enough meat on the bone for me to really think too hard about. You know what I mean? Whereas like, Ben Wheatley, the meat is on the bone. You just have to tear into it. This, I feel like we could sit here and speculate about stuff and we might just be jerking ourselves off because none of that was put into the story,
Yeah. And it becomes like the ending with the heads on the pikes and the dick mutilation and the guts out. Like, that's all hard, crazy imagery.
Yeah.
But like, what motivated that?
Yeah. Are you supposed to think that? Yeah. You don't know. You don't know. You can speculate. I think you're meant to believe that Robbie did it or was complicit in it, or he is the monster, or he was taken over by the monster, or there's not a monster. Like there's just all this vagueness, but there's not enough breadcrumbs for us to come to an interesting conclusion.
Wild conclusion. He is a monster until he cuts off his dick. It's all the dick, you know. It's the dick's
you cut
fault.
the dick off. Now you're free from it.
Yeah. So guys,
that makes
cut your
sense.
dicks off. Let's go.
Yeah.
Free yourself from the chains of humanity. Cut your dick off.
Cut your dick off. Kill God. Cut your dick off. Kill God. Cut your dick off.
Renounce the covenant with God and cut your dick off.
You know what I was thinking? Actually, I might do this tonight. I ate a bunch of flaming hot pickle flavored Lay's potato chips this afternoon.
Okay.
And I'm thinking I might, to save myself and my loved ones from me, I might rip my guts out and cut my dick off before I go to bed tonight. But
I did it all for you.
Have like Lay's dust coming off of like your intestines.
Yeah.
God, it's getting everywhere,
I'm
Brian.
going to disembowel myself because I'd rather do that than feel what's going to happen to my asshole tomorrow. And then if I'm going to do that, I might as well just cut my dick off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While you're down there.
There's a complete A to Z. I mean, you're on the same region. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that was The Outwaters from 20 and 22. I feel like I was harsh on this movie. 15 grand. And you know what? It was, the first half was really boring, but it had its moments in the second half. And the last few minutes were, the last 45 minutes of the movie really kept my attention well, even though there, was super vague. And I think that's a testament to like him, putting some pretty cool imagery on the screen, especially for I'm a story guy. It's hard to keep me tied into a movie without a really strong story. If you liked Skinamarink, I think you're going to like this. It's not a masterpiece, but I think like if you can just kind of go along for the ride and be okay with just the incredibly vague nature of things and just take in the bizarre imagery and stuff, you're gonna enjoy it. So it was an overall not necessarily a movie I'm going to go revisit, but also not unhappy that I watched it either. So what did you guys think?
Sure.
Overall thoughts?
I'm probably more harsh than you are because I don't like found footage films on the simple basis.
Yes, you are famously a hater of found footage films.
Yeah, simply on the basis of like, I think like it's 2023 and we're still wasting people's time trying to make them believe this actually happened. You don't have to do this ever again. Yeah. Never, ever again. Never try to make people believe it's real.
Just make an interesting film, please.
Yeah,
but like look at a movie like Host. Like that was
I didn't see it.
I watched Host and I remember liking it.
I really liked it.
That was like when they were doing like the Zoom hangout, right? It was like during the pandemic. Okay, yeah.
Okay,
so I remember enjoying it.
It was 100% a movie of its time. It came out at it was made and came out at the exact right time, but I thought it was a really fresh, interesting, and effective take on found footage. And it was, like I said, it was just so it just was very much of its time because it happened in the early stages of the pandemic where it was like all this uncertainty and stuff. But my point is I'm not as harsh on found footage, but yes, this did nothing new from a found footage perspective. I don't think.
And I think it's just because like we've had like films like Hell House LLC, Grave Encounters, and As Above, So Below. And like I never felt like any of those films wasted my time because they are very good at like storytelling as well and like setting up characters. So like just kind of copy those now. You don't have to try to make people believe it's real because that was the gimmick behind Blair Witch and Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Don't do that anymore though.
Yeah. Don't just do it.
Get to it.
Yeah. I think in general, I feel mildly split in it in that like, when I first and foremost, when Steve like kind of reeled that website, I honestly think I kind of actually would like it. I wish they were just more honest about it, or maybe they don't know that they're doing it. I just have a feeling they do. So,
well, I think Well, sorry to cut you off. It's just I think these are so many tales that are familiar to people who are desert people.
Sure. Sure.
That,
yes. It's just like over and over again. But yeah. I mean, but I think it would be an interesting thing to talk about, like the folklore around it. Like, I think that'd be a fun thing to explore. However, I think the other thing that I do like and something I pointed out, and maybe I still kind of believe, is that in the effect of like a found footage being just so kind of raw and feeling unfinished as this did, I think that's like the one idea of found footage that I did like. I didn't feel put together like a whole film. Now, to that same point, I still think you're a filmmaker, and that first hour could have been cut down to 20 minutes. Like, set me up and then show me the goods.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It felt like a necessity. It felt like a necessity to make it found footage, and I don't see the need to drag things out so harsh early on. You know what I mean? Like, also, I guess there's one other thing that was never really explained, and if this is a phenomena, if this area is a phenomena, and maybe we didn't get that much into it, but it felt like there was a wrong place, wrong time situation happening with not only the like tons of it felt like they were trying to communicate that there was a disproportionately high amount of strong earthquakes that were happening right around that time. And then you went out in the desert and they kept showing this like fault lines as well. So it led me to believe that like maybe something that was in the hell hole, if you will, or whatever, devil's hole, was escaping to the surface because the earth split open or something. And you could have explained that a little bit more, and it wouldn't even cost you an extra dime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I guess that was, for me, that was kind of implied that, like, you know, these earthquakes opened up the hole, and then there was probably another earthquake that closed it up.
Yeah, but it's just like it doesn't cost you any more to like bring that into the story a little bit. It doesn't have to be that vague. And I, like I said, I don't mind vague. You know, I don't mind being not spoon-fed things, but like this was so vague that it was just I don't know, made it hard for you to care at times. But
yeah. I'll say I'm terribly interested, since like both this movie and Skinamarink were done for $15,000, and maybe more so Skinamarink is because I think that had a lot more of an artistic vision behind it. But I'm terribly interested what these two directors do next. Yeah, because like I've said it before, like Skinamarink can't be redone. No, you can't make a sequel to that and have people enjoy it the same way. And you know, this film has good ideas, and I think the sound design does a lot of lifting, even though sometimes it's also bad. Yeah. But like, yeah, I'm interested to see what they do next. Like, are they getting lucky off these couple $15,000, or are these like, do these guys have something more in them? Yeah. Do they have the chops where if they're given, you know, $1 million or $750,000 that they can go out and do something, or even really just special with it? Yeah. Or even just $500,000. Like, yeah. See what they do with a $500,000 film. Yeah. So we shall see. We shall see, boys and ghouls. All right. Don't forget, next week, tune in to our Minisode, where we are going to tell you what our hungry for horror movies are going to be. And then you'll have a week to go out and watch those movies, or at least familiarize yourself with them if you choose to do so, before our March Showdown episode. I'm super excited about this one. I think I got a strong flick that I'm going to pick going into this one. And this is a topic, you know, food related, restaurant related type of thing. I think this one's been floating around the old wheel probably since we started the podcast, and we finally get to do it, which I'm really excited about. So tune in for that. And as always, if you feel so inclined, go give us a little review on like Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, and shoot me a little DM
and tell me that you reviewed us, and I'll send you some fucking stickers in the mail, guys. It's February. It's sticker season. I don't know why it would be sticker season, but I'll send you some in the mail for sure, guys. All right. Anything else I'm forgetting?
I would say maybe look out on the Instagram. I'm going to put up some polls, I think, about like what we could possibly do on Patreon. And we want to hear from the audience what they would prefer us to do. And then also, I think March might be our first. I think March will launch Patreon.
Okay.
So that'll be our first, kind of tier, and that'll include the Showdown episode. And I think maybe, it'll be just straight to the movies if that's what you guys want.
Yeah.
Rather than,
And then we're talking about what kind of little bonus content you might want out there for yins who are fans that would subscribe to the Patreon. So if you have any questions, let us know. Yeah. You want Steve to draw you a picture? You want me to rub your feet? You want me to suck on your toes? I don't know. Just let me know what you're into. And
Brian,
we'll give you that
I'm
for the
curious
paper.
to hear like what you would think I would do now.
What are you going to offer?
Steve's the
Steve
drawer,
can draw a
you're
picture.
sucking toes?
I'm going to suck toes.
Sure,
Good luck finding a boyfriend who sucks toes. All right. It's a Tenacious D quote, guys. I don't know. Think about what you're going to do. I'll send you a whole handful of my pubes.
Pubes with flaming hot pickle dust seasoning in them.
Think about it. How many pubes for $1 would you take?
I'll just eat food on a video on our Patreon.
Mukbang Meg.
Mukbang Meg. Brian will send you his pubes. Steve will draw you a picture. All right, guys. Those are the 3 tiers.
It's all over the place.
For $1 a month, Steve will send you a picture. For $5 a month, Meg will send you a mukbang video. For $10 a month, I'll cut off all my pubes and mail to you.
Pubes and potato chips.
We should not have.
No
these
one is
recorded.
going to subscribe to this channel.
How about this?
Brian.
$10 a month. I promise I won't mail you my pubes. All right, boys and ghouls. For the Halloween is Forever crew, I'm Brian.
I'm me.
I'm the devil's hole.
Take my pubes. Take them. Bye.